Good morning, everybody. My name is Sally Watts. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the Florence Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, also known as FUF. Repeat after me, FUF. So, thank you, everybody. We have a few people in the audience today. I've got Catherine Hemmons here. I've got Jay. I've got Ray. We've got Deb, and we've got George and Jim behind the camera. So we might have some lively voices singing our opening song, which, by the way, is Spirit of Life. It's number 123. We sing it out, we sing it proud every Sunday morning. So I'm inviting Catherine to come forward, safely distancing, and we're going to sing Spirit of Life. Cue it up. Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in my heart, oh, the stirrings of compassion, blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, winds set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. That's Jeff Lovejoy playing that wonderful song for us. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. Announcements this morning. I want to start off with a quick shout out to Florence Food Share. They sent us a quick note of thanks. It says, thank you to all who donated to Florence Food Share for March and April. We all appreciate your thinking of us and our clients. Because of kind donations like yours, our shelves are quite full with all the items our clients use most. From all of us to all of you at FUF, we thank you for your kindness. Regards, Janet Engel. So, Florence Food Share, great thank you from them, and thank you to you for your contributions. Secondly, remember, we've got a Zoom meeting at noon today, where whoever can join us, we gather on Zoom and we talk about today's message or anything else that's on your mind. So join us at noon on Zoom. And next week, although I don't have a whole lot of information, our own Rosetta Jansen will be our guest at the pulpit. She's got a great program talking about something that's near and dear to her heart, and we hope you'll join us for that. At this time, I invite Catherine to come forward. We're going to light our chalice this morning, and this is taken from the Buddhist teacher Sharon Salzberg in her essay titled Forever Connected. Catherine, do we need a clicker? Yes, we need a clicker. All right. Here's a clicker. We always struggle with the clicker, don't we? Push it forward. This is a test, everybody, of your patience. No matter how despairing or cut off we can feel at any given time, we are not actually severed from the essential flow of life or from one another. If we get quiet for a while and pay careful attention, this is what we realize. Thank you very much. So our offertory for the next 2 months, which is what month are we in now? I lose track. I think this is May and June, is the Boys and Girls Club of Florence. Now, many of you know about the Boys and Girls Club, great organization doing really extraordinary things for our kids in the community at this moment. And they're very grateful to your contributions to help them continue their mission to provide really good meals coming up in this particular summer months for kids and their families, as well as their after-school programs. And let's not forget our own FUF. This particular fellowship cannot survive without the kind contributions and donations that you provide us. So remember, if you've got a jar at home at your kitchen table, you can add to it. I found this down below, and there's a $2 bill stuffed inside, and my family always believed that a $2 bill was really good luck. So that's for us for good luck. And remember, you can send us a check to our P.O. Box 2502. You can go on our website and click on the donate button, and you can even say to us how you want your money distributed. So much to FOOF, so much to Boys and Girls Club, and we'll take care of the rest. So thank you for your consideration, and we really, really appreciate it. Jeff recorded a wonderful hymn for us. We sing it. I think we might sing it a little faster than what he's playing it for us, but we don't care. We just love listening to Jeff play his music and sing along. So this is hymn number 100. I've got Peace Like a River. It also follows with, I've got Peace Like a River, then Love Like an Ocean, Pain Like an Arrow, and finally, Strength Like a Mountain. So I'm going to ask Jim to zoom in on our goose painting, because it's what we look at when we're here every Sunday. And I'm going to ask Ray to cue up, I've got Peace Like a River.
Everyone. This is the joys and concerns portion of our service. Ours is a caring community, committed to being peacemakers and insisting on justice wherever we can. Committed to caring for others while not forgetting to care for ourselves. And committed to being the light in the world wherever we are. And committed to listening to each other with compassion and generosity. So in these times of social distancing, we may not have our usual social connections to share with. We don't share our usual laughter and hugs on Sunday anymore. And our world may get smaller and more isolated. So I ask you to take the chance to call or email FOOF or someone you may feel comfortable with in the congregation. Either to share a joy or a concern if you're in need, or just to check on someone else you may not have heard from in a while. This doesn't take any special skill, just the willingness to speak from your heart and the patience to listen to someone as you would like to be listened to. I do have a concern to bring up as Sally drops a shell in the cleansing water. Thank you, Sally. Richard Box is the husband of Becky Box. They have attended functions here and are known to us in the larger community. Richard has an apparent history of heart issues and is having concerning symptoms right now. As it stands, he is not able to get to see his doctor for a couple more weeks. I am doing prayer treatment for him and have enlisted others who believe in the intention of prayer. Perhaps others will take a moment in their day sometime this week and say a prayer or an intention for his complete recovery and a speedier doctor's appointment. Sally, anyone else? Oh wait, I have one more. Oh, I have a joy. Judy and Ray have a visitor. Yay, oh my goodness, a visitor. We love those. Judy's niece, Colleen. And they all had a beautiful beach walk today on Washburn Beach. And it's the first visit since February. I have yet to have a visitor, I'm jealous. Diogi got to run free with no one there, and that is a joyful experience for sure. Anyone else?
And I've got a couple.
Okay, I'm going to step away.
Yeah.
So I want to share a couple of joys. Some of you may know that I wrote a letter to the editor not too long ago about the dire straits of the United States Postal Service and imploring everybody to use mail, okay? Let's not give up on our postal service, especially those fine people. And I received the cutest card from a friend who just said, "You made my day." And inside the card are all these little fun items that I can then pass along to the next person whenever I send out a card. It's a wonderful way to stay connected, so I'm just filled with joy on that. Also filled with joy, I got a card from Ann Lathrop, bless you. This one I love, this is going to go on my refrigerator. "I know you believe you understand what you think I just said, but I am not sure you realize that what you heard is not what I meant." Ann? I'm not sure I understand, but I'm going to keep reading it. And then two little jokes. She sent some pornographies. This one is, "I know a guy who's addicted to brake fluid. Don't worry, he says he can stop anytime." I know. I did a theatrical performance about puns. It was a play on words. And finally, what do you call a dinosaur with an extensive vocabulary?
A thesaurus.
A thesaurus! Thank you very much. And then last but not least, my final joy is, got a note here from one of our friends at FOOF. She says, "I hope everyone is safe and well. I certainly am. Wishing you all the opportunity to find moments of joy and the space to seek peace." I love that, the space to seek peace. I miss hanging out with you in person, but we are all together in this strange soup. Please utilize these funds that I'm sending where it will do the most good. What a lovely, lovely note. So I'm going to step aside and drop a couple of shells for these people as Catherine comes back up and we finish this part.
One for that, one for that, one for that. Okay.
And please drop a final shell.
Final shell.
To anyone that is listening and that has anything they need to share. Hold each other in peace and health. You are only a thought away from each other, and so it is. So next, we go on to a reading that was chosen for us by Reverend Dennis Reynolds. He is our speaker for today. And it is a portion of something entitled "For a Nurse" by John O'Donoghue. And John O'Donoghue was an Irish poet, author, priest, and philosopher. As an author, he is best known for popularizing Celtic spirituality. To bless this space between us. In this fragile space, your kindness becomes a light that consoles the brokenhearted. Awakens within desperate storms that oasis of serenity that calls the spirit to rise from beneath the weight of pain. To create a new space in the person's mind where they gain distance from their suffering and begin to see the invitation to integrate and transform it. Boy, I love that. May you embrace the beauty in what you do and how you stand like a secret angel between the bleak despair of illness and the unquenchable light of spirit. This can turn the darkest destiny toward dawn. May you never doubt the gifts you bring. Rather, learn from these frontiers wisdom for your own heart. May you come to inherit the blessings of your kindness and never be without care and love when winter enters your own life. That is completely lovely. I really want to read more of this person. I mean, thank you, Reverend Reynolds. I now announce the musical interlude, an original composition by our beloved Jeff Lovejoy entitled Enter with Care. Thank you.
Well, that was beautiful. Jeff, thank you. For those of us who are here at FOOF, no one fell asleep, but I think we all got nice and relaxed. So thank you for that, Jeff. It's my pleasure to introduce our guest at the pulpit, Reverend Dennis Reynolds. He's a retired UU minister who retired to Eugene in 2019. He previously served as the minister for the UU congregation of Whidbey Island in Washington. Prior to that, he served briefly in Humboldt County, California, and Klamath Falls, Oregon. He has also worked as a hospital chaplain. So we've got a few of those around, don't we? Dennis is a native-born Oregonian who, prior to his career in ministry, served for many years as the Director of Student Child Care Services at the University of Oregon. Returning to Eugene has been a homecoming for Dennis and his wife, Suzanne. He has 3 adult children and 1 grandchild who literally live all over the world. So please, welcome Reverend Dennis Reynolds, guest at our pulpit.
I'm lying in my bed, unable to move. My breath is slow and labored. I look around the room and all I can see is fog. And the fog is illuminated by a white, bright light. At the edge of my vision, I can make out clocks and dials somewhere in the edges. Tubes are protruding from my body. The whole thing looks like I was in a Borg cube from a Star Trek episode. Resistance was futile. At the edge of the fog moved a being, mostly human in appearance, but short and orange tinged with rainbow-hued clothing. I was reminded when I looked at this creature of the Oompa Loompas from the film Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. The being moved closer, not via strides, but rather either rolling or floating across the room. They came closer, whispered reassurance. They calmed me by their soft tone and their stable presence. They moved around the room, attending to the clocks and dials, and then returned to my side. They stayed with me as I drifted back to sleep. When I awoke in the real world, what I saw had much in common with my dream. I was indeed in the light-filled rooms. There were dials on the walls, especially on the wall behind my bed. I was tethered and attached with an IV drip in my left arm. Small rubber tubes hung from a port in my left chest, and there was another tube between my right ribs. I later learned it was draining fluid from my chest cavity. Things were definitely foggy as my mind was dulled and my cognition slowed, both from medications and I later discovered from significant systemic infections. I was in the intensive care unit at St. Joseph's Hospital in Bellingham, Washington, where I had been for 4 days. I had missed those days altogether because I had been sedated and intubated. I was on a ventilator. Current reports over a scarcity of ventilators to sustain COVID-19 patients reminds me that if it were not for the availability of such technology, I clearly would not be here today. Back then, nurses and other staff greeted me on my return to consciousness. None looked, though, quite like my Dreamtime visitor. The main daytime nurse was tall and lanky, and the bearded evening guy, even though he showed up at his next shift wearing rainbow-hued scrubs, just didn't look like my nighttime visitor. They had much in common, though. Perhaps they weren't so very different. Those nurses gifted me with excellent care and made real the sense of calm I had previously experienced in my dream. With the help of medications, they eased my pain and my anxiousness. This morning, I want to honor and celebrate such individuals. Medical personnel, the angels who serve every day and especially in these tenuous times that serve the cause of life and the cause of love and the cause of compassion. I also want to pause just very briefly this morning and invite all of us to honor all those who keep us going in these times. Grocery clerks, delivery people, food harvesters and preparers, and in particular, though, those medical staff, especially nurses, who I believe are angels, angels who dwell here on earth, who courageously and righteously help us to recover from injuries, fight against illness, and in our times, face the virus. This Tuesday in May, the first Tuesday in May, was International Nurses Day, a time that was set aside to honor those who are on the front line of medical work. And tomorrow will be Memorial Day, a time originally set aside to honor those who have died in service to their country. It's become in recent years more broadly a time to honor all who have died. This year, let's add those frontline healthcare workers who have died from the virus to the list of those we honor for their service. Let's also acknowledge the passing of nearly 100,000 people in the U.S. who have died from COVID-19. In these days, it's often a nurse who has been the one at the bedside at the end of life. In a time of no visitors, it has often been a hospital nurse holding the phone for family members who can only say goodbye through a phone call. And the hand that comforts one at the end of life is a nurse. The essay and novelist Brian Doyle shares the following recollection that I'd like to read to you this morning. The first time I saw a nurse was when I was 4 years old and someone had cut my tonsils out. And I woke up addled to find a cheerful woman wearing white, leaning over me and murmuring something gentle. The room was all white, and the bed was all white, and there were white curtains on the window. I thought I had died and was in heaven, and that the woman leaning over me was an angel. I was deeply relieved to be in heaven because I had recently sinned grievously, and my brother still had a black eye. For a moment, I wondered if the woman smiling at me was the Madonna. But then I remembered the Madonna wore blue. The woman leaning over me then said gently, "Everything will be all right," which it was after a while, during which I discovered that I was not yet dead and that she was a nurse. But for me, ever since, Doyle tells us, nurses are essentially angelic, and even now, into my 50s, I have lived long and seen much. I've never yet been disabused of the notion that nurses are gentle and witty and brilliant and holy beings who bring light and peace, even though I know they must have dark nights when they are weary and sad and thrashed by despair like a beach by a tide. He reports that I have seen nurses help bring my children out of the sea of their mother and into the sharp and bracing air of this world. I have seen nurses praying by my tiny son's bed before and after his heart was edited so he could live to be a lanky and testy teenager that he is today. I have seen a nurse grappling cheerfully with the wires and coils and tubes and plugs and toggles and keyboards of vast machinery beyond my ken. I've seen nurses with blood on their blouses in the nether reaches of the night in emergency rooms. I've seen nurses hold my children's head as my children were sick upon their shoes. And never a snarl did I hear from those nurses, but only a soothing sound deep in the throat, a sound more ancient than any civilization. I heard friends of mine who are nurses speak eloquently and articulately about their work as witness, as story saving, as patience and endurance, as being those souls who stand by the door between life and death, usher people through it in both directions. In both directions. He continues, I have quietly gaped in awe at the sinewy courage and flinty strength and oceanic grace of nurses, and many times considered what our hospitals and hospices and clinics and schools and lives would be without them, which just stays darker and colder and more brittle and fearful. We would be even more alone and scared than we are now when faced with pain and confusion. We take them for granted. Yes, we do. We think of them with reverence and gratitude only when we see them briskly and gently at work, leaning over us, and those we love being both tart and sweet at once. Here this morning, in this dreamlike yet all too real time of pandemic, let us pause and answer an invitation from Doyle to pray. To pray for them in the holy caves of our mouth and thank the mercy for these most able and skillful agents of his dream, of divinity's dream for us. That we will rise to love and joy, that we will achieve humility, that we will shape our humor and laboring and creativity into life that are prayers in motion. Prayers applied to solve the pain of our companions on the road. Let us in short pray not only for the extraordinary smiling army of nurses among us. Let us pray to be like them, sinewy and tender, gracious and honest, avatars of love. Avatars of love. Amen to that. Now, the metaphor of nurses as real life angels is what led me to title this sermon Angels in America. Many of you no doubt recall that was the title of a play written by Tony Kushner in the 1990s, and later in 2003 it was adapted as an HBO miniseries. The play and the film are set in the height of the AIDS pandemic, and it offers tales of people whose lives are disrupted by disease and cultural conflict. In the stories, we see characters slide into isolation and loneliness. The angels in the title visit the characters and serve as symbols of judgment and an opportunity to reclaim purity. Such seem apt symbols to explore in our times, in the midst of our pandemic. Angels have existed in numerous faith traditions throughout history and are usually seen as messengers between the divine and humanity. The word is derived from the Latin word angelus, literally meaning messenger. In the book of Daniel in the Hebrew Bible, we hear of Gabriel, God's primary messenger, and Michael, the holy fighter. Christians inherited Jewish understandings of angels, which may have been partially inherited from the Egyptians. Belief in angels is also fundamental in Islam. Baha'u'llah, the founder of the Baha'i faith, describes angels as people who have clothed themselves with angelic attributes and have become endowed with the attributes of the spiritual. I like that description of angels as individuals, individuals who have clothed themselves with angelic attributes. Clothe themselves with angelic attributes. I and Brian Doyle, and I suspect many of you have encountered such beings that are such clothed with those kinds of attributes. In myth and in the real world, angelic beings are not without a dark side. We hear from Hebrew scriptures of so-called fallen angels. Fallen angels became identified with those angels who were led by Satan in rebellion against God and are equated with demons. Christian gospels identified Satan as the primary fallen angel. In Luke, we read of Satan falling from heaven, and Matthew speaks of the devil and his angels, who will be thrown into hell. Now, our Universalists, more than Unitarian ancestors, rejected the notion of hell and damnation and moved us away from such a dualistic notion of good versus evil. Now, I do have to admit sometimes, though, I struggle to not simply categorize some of our current leaders as demons. I hold tight, though, to a separation between deed and doer, condemning actions as evil without categorizing the individual themselves as inherently evil. Our first Unitarian Universalist principle calls for us to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, including those who sometimes seem like demons. There is good and evil in the world, and angels help us to affirm that, to remember that. Now, when I think of good versus bad angels, I'm reminded of those cartoon angels that many of us saw growing up, wherein we saw a good angel and a bad angel talking to the main character and giving voice to their moral dilemmas. The moral dilemmas we all explore through our internal dialogue. Those cartoon exchanges offer humorous yet meaningful reminders that the potential for good and evil actions exist within each of us. Angels can metaphorically be our guides towards a better life. I'm sure many of you recall the angel second class Clarence, who in the film It's a Wonderful Life helped George Bailey recognize the reality of the wonderful life he was already living. My favorite fictional angel is the one portrayed by John Travolta in the 1996 film Michael. If you've not seen it, I recommend it. If you saw it in the past, it is worth seeing again. It's out there, available to all of us in the movie streaming world. The depiction of the Archangel Michael in the film gives us a unique, clearly non-dualistic version of such celestial beings. Travolta and the screenwriter and director Nora Ephron's Michael does not fit most people's images of what being angelic looks like or how an angel come to earth might behave. He is a bit of a slob, this Michael. He likes to dance and carouse and drink beer, and he sometimes consumes incredibly massive quantities of sugar. When characters in the film question him about this seeming incongruence, he replies, "I'm not that kind of angel." He does not fit my definition of one who, he does though. fit my definition of what one who fights evil might act like. Early on in the film, he smites a bank, causing the building to fall flat onto the ground. Like I said, that's my kind of angel that smites lending institutions for their predatory practices. Michael is bigger than life in many ways. He certainly is a bringer of life. And in the end, he helps the film's characters to answer to the better angels of their nature. My older sister, Linda, was a nurse. And like all of us, she was mixed bag, sometimes sweet and sometimes, well, a tad bit controlling. But hey, that's what big sisters do. In her work, though, she was amazing. For a time, she worked for Peace Health right here in Florence. But after a particularly difficult winter of commuting through the rain and needing to detour around through forest roads around a mudslide closed 101, she sought work as a home health nurse closer to her home in Walport. She tells stories that stand as exemplary models of how each of us has the potential to ease pain and the discomfort of the world. I remember with tears brimming in my eyes her description of how, when she was working in neonatal intensive care, she once spent almost an entire shift just cuddling and holding a born too soon infant who was loved and held by her for its entire too short lifetime. As a home health nurse, she helped individuals, patients, navigate life, and with one patient was present at her death. She ended her career by returning to work as a hospital floor nurse, attending to whatever her patients' needs might be. I worked for a time first as a student and then as a staff chaplain at that same hospital. And I daily saw many nurses do the blessed work of deep caring, of making love real through compassionate action. These times call for all of us to do the same. I want to remind you that nurse is not just a noun. Nurse is a verb. It's both the act of a mother feeding her child and the providing of all kinds of loving and caring. Especially in these perilous times, the bruised and hurting world is in deep need of more compassion, more nursing, more care, more love. As the pandemic continues to spread, both pain and suffering and deep fear spread too. We need more acts of love. As we seek to return to some kind of normalcy, we need more acts of love. As we begin to craft a more compassionate new normal, we will need more acts of love. And each of us are called to do such works of love in different ways. For some, it has been staying home, avoiding being infected and straining medical resources, and also not risking spreading the infection further. For others, it has been reaching out to isolated friends through a phone call or email, or even old school cards and letters. Still others who have the skill have kept us collectively connected via Zoom, Facebook Live, and other technologies. Some have sewn masks or surgical caps. Some have spent more time in the garden growing more food and bringing more beauty to the world. Read their grandchildren to sleep. Some have spent time in their garden growing more food and bringing more beauty. Some have kept spirits full through prayers and worship. Others have continued to work delivering goods, growing food, selling food, and assuring the safety of all. And then there are those courageous folks on the front line of healthcare who have helped with the healing, eased the pain, and then shared their hearts in the midst of so much loss. All of us can heed O'Donoghue's words. May you never doubt the gifts you bring. Rather learn from these frontiers wisdom from your own heart. May you come to inherit the blessings of your kindness and never be without love and care. May it be so.
Thank you, Dennis. Really appreciate your being here with us today. We're going to extinguish our chalice with a reading from Maureen Killoran titled, "This is the Message of Our Faith." This is the message of our faith: to act with passion in the face of injustice, to love with courage in the midst of life's pain. This is the meaning of our chalice flame. May it empower our hearts until we are together again. Thank you. And now Reverend Dennis Reynolds has some closing words he'd like to share with you.
I'd like to offer you now these closing words of benediction from the Reverend Dr. Rebecca Parker. Choose to bless the world. The choice to bless the world can take you into solitude, to search for the sources of power and grace, native wisdom, healing, and liberation. More, the choice will draw you into community. The endeavor shared, the heritage passed on, the companionship of struggle, the importance of keeping faith, the life of ritual and praise, the comfort of human friendship, the company of earth, its chorus of life welcoming you. None of us alone can save the world. Together, that is another possibility waiting. Salam, shalom, amen, and blessed be.
Okay. Thank you very much again, Reverend Dennis. We appreciate it. So we're going to close with the singing of our peace song. I'm going to invite Catherine to come back up, and we're going to sing. And whoever is still with us today, you're welcome to stand and sing, and let's let our voices be heard. This is our peace song.
That was meant to be, with love as our center, family all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, everyone, for being with us today. We look forward to seeing you at noon on Zoom, and again next Sunday morning with Rosetta Janston. Have a great day.